Taking my son. See where I came up at. Where I grew up at. Where I grew up at. Oh, yeah. Come on, Coach. 7C. See, Panthers back in the day, everybody looked out for each other. Right. So my mom would leave and go to work. I still had to make it to school in the morning. But everybody looked out for each other. Yeah.
Hey guys, if you want to jump in right here, let's dive into some serious flip action.
You go through there, hey, is there still a laundromat right in the middle? Yeah. The laundromat right in the middle. No, that's where we used to go wash clothes and everything. Because ain't nobody had to wash and dry. But I learned how to play football with a milk jug right in the middle of that grass right there. We used to go in. But we looked out for each other.
We can absolutely make that happen today. But here's where things get really deep. Yeah, clearly this was the spot. Deion Sanders just took Shedeur back to the exact streets where he first picked up the game using nothing but a milk jug. The powerful lesson he dropped in that cemetery, where he built his legendary speed, shows exactly why Shedeur has the mental strength that doubters say he doesn't possess. Before we get into Deion's perspective on hope that's been put on hold when a worried local recognized him at his old rundown building, you need to understand that this wasn't just some feel-good memory lane trip. This was about proving to Shedeur that the swagger people mistake for cockiness came from a father who refused to let being broke define his future. When Shedeur had to explain things to a confused stranger, you could see that Deion had taught his boys exactly what he sacrificed to give them chances he never got. Look at what actually happened here. Deion took Shedeur and Shiloh straight back to Fort Myers, Florida. Not the nice parts, not the tourist spots. The actual projects where he grew up. The busted apartments, the cemeteries, the dirt patches where kids played tackle with a milk jug because nobody owned an actual football. The entire experience was designed to hammer home one point. Without knowing where you started, you'll never understand where you're headed. First stop was the original housing complex, Building 7C specifically. Deion's description of that life really drives home just how different his son's childhood was from his own reality. Back then, everybody looked out for everybody. Deion broke it down for his boys. Even when my mama couldn't make it to work, I still had to figure out how to get to school. Everybody looked out for everybody. That's what real community means. That's surviving by watching each other's backs. That environment shaped Deion Sanders into primetime way before the money and fame showed up. Then Deion pointed to this specific area in the grass. That patch right there, man. That's where I learned football. Just think about that for a second. One of the greatest players in NFL history developed his foundation on a basic piece of dirt between some apartment buildings. No youth league. No expensive camps, no private trainers. Just kids, a milk jug, and raw creativity. Deion remembered, we used to play right in the middle of that grass with a milk jug, because nobody had a football. We went to the laundromat, but I learned my football skills right there on that spot. Shedeur watched his dad explain this, and you could literally see him processing everything, because Shedeur's upbringing was completely different. Shedeur had resources, training facilities, equipment, all the things Deion never touched. And that's exactly what Deion wanted him to recognize. The journey, the struggle, the distance from milk jug games to NFL greatness. Those are the building blocks that created Shedeur's opportunities. But here's where this gets really intense. Deion wasn't just showing his sons poverty and struggle, he was showing them the creativity that emerges from having nothing. The innovation required to pursue excellence when you start from zero. That's when they reached the second location that completely changed everything. The housing on 1625 Lane. The one that got condemned just a month ago. The one surrounded by graveyards on both sides of the street. Deion stood there with his sons, telling the story that explains where his incredible speed actually came from. Look at that graveyard over there. Graveyards on both sides of the street. We didn't have streetlights, so you know the stories about graveyards. Shedeur and Shiloh nodded. Everyone knows the legends, the fear, the scary stories that make graveyards terrifying places after sunset. Deion explained how we would see a car light coming down the street. We would run down here full speed, wide open, because we were running straight through a graveyard. That's where Deion Sanders' speed was born. Not from natural ability or professional training, from sprinting through cemeteries in the dark, powered by terror and no other choice. Fear created his speed. Necessity drove him to excellence. Poverty built the mindset that eventually made him prime time. Shedeur was standing right there, absorbing everything. Understanding that the confidence his father carries, the attitude that got him into the Hall of Fame, started with a scared kid who had to run past dead bodies just to make it home safe. That's real confidence. That survival became pure domination. But then something happened that shows even more about how people view the Sanders family. A resident came out of one of the apartments, looking nervous and talking kind of scattered, not sure how to express what he was feeling. Shiloh had to step in and break it down. You realize that's Deion primetime, right? You know what I'm saying? The guy admitted he was nervous, that he was speechless. It was completely mind-blowing to see a living legend right in his neighborhood. Deion's pastor, filming the whole thing, made an incredible observation about that moment. This shows that even in the darkest situations, hope exists. It's been suspended. Every time you turn it back on, the same thing happens. Think about what that means. That resident wasn't just starstruck. He was seeing proof that someone exactly like him had escaped, achieved greatness, and become everything society said was impossible for a kid from the Fort Myers projects. That suspended hope just got turned back on. That's the power of representation. Deion bringing his sons back to the hood matters more than people realize, because those kids in those apartments now have Shedeur Sanders to look up to. A kid who grew up with privilege, sure, but a kid whose father started with nothing. A young man whose confidence comes from a legacy of conquering impossible odds. And maybe, just maybe, some kid in those apartments will watch Shedeur succeed in Cleveland and think, if Coach Prime's son can do this, coming from a bloodline that began with a milk jug and graveyards, then maybe I can too. That's generational inspiration. That's legacy beyond just sports numbers. Now let's connect this back to why this trip matters for Shedeur's NFL future. The media spent months attacking his confidence during draft season, calling him arrogant, saying he lacked the humility to succeed, questioning whether a privileged kid could handle NFL adversity. But standing in those graveyards, seeing those abandoned apartments, understanding that his father ran through darkness fueled by pure fear, gives Shedeur a perspective the media missed completely. Shedeur's confidence isn't built on entitlement, it's built on watching his father refuse to accept limitations. Deion Sanders grew up hearing that kids from his area never escaped, and he said, "Watch me," then became one of the all-time greats. That's the blueprint Shedeur inherited. It's not just about talent and resources, it's the mentality that external expectations can't define internal potential. When Cleveland media questions whether Shedeur can handle the pressure of being a franchise quarterback, here's the answer. This kid understands pressure in ways they can't imagine, because he's seen real struggle up close. He's walked through the graveyards where his father built greatness. That's not privilege making him soft, that's education making him stronger. Deion shared something about teaching that really reveals his coaching philosophy. How many times does someone actually get to show what they're truly capable of? I find that I can't always give everything I have to give, because it's at a level that people don't understand. You have to bring it down. That's Deion admitting he operates at a level most people can't reach. But when he gets kids who really want it, who hunger for knowledge and greatness, they pull more out of him than he could give anyone else. Shedeur is one of those kids. Someone with hunger, willing to be challenged, ready to ask the questions that unlock deep wisdom. Deion can teach Shedeur things he simply can't teach most players. Shedeur gets it, period. He's seen the graveyards. He knows the milk jug story. He understands what his father overcame. That understanding translates directly to NFL success. When you know your father's speed was forged in darkness, you realize your own speed, mental, physical, emotional, comes from confronting challenges instead of avoiding them. The mango story is a perfect example. Deion told them about going into the graveyard to get mangoes. In the neighborhood, mangoes never got ripe. They were going to knock them down early. Kids would look for mangoes in the graveyard just to have something to eat. That's pure resourcefulness. That's making something from nothing. That's the opposite of entitlement. Shedeur watched his father demonstrate that resourcefulness by climbing a tree and knocking down mangoes just like he did as a child. Not because he had to now, but to show his sons how it was done. The skills that poverty forced you to develop become part of your DNA forever. Shedeur absorbed that lesson from this trip. Challenges build capabilities. Struggle creates character. Comfort prevents greatness, and that's what he needed to understand before his second NFL season. Because year 2 is when excuses stop working. Year 2 is when rookie status ends. Year 2 is when you either prove you belong or get left behind. Shedeur just learned what belonging really means. It doesn't mean fitting in. It means refusing to leave. It means running through graveyards when getting home matters more than being scared. That mentality is what will carry Shedeur through whatever Cleveland throws at him in 2025. The offensive line might still struggle. The media might keep questioning him. The pressure might intensify. But nothing compares to graveyards and milk jugs. Nothing matches what Deion endured to create the opportunities Shedeur has now. Deion made sure his son understood that. Shedeur walked the same paths, saw the same buildings, felt the same energy that shaped primetime into who he became. This wasn't a tour. This was education. Deion Sanders made sure his son never forgets where the family came from, always values what he has access to, never mistakes privilege for weakness. Privilege only becomes weakness when you don't understand the work and sacrifice that built it. When you've walked through the graveyards where your father developed his skills. When you've seen the milk jug he turned into a football. When you've stood in the broken apartments that shaped his childhood, privilege becomes responsibility. Responsibility to honor the sacrifice, to maximize every opportunity, and to become everything your father's struggle made possible. Shedeur Sanders is about to dominate Cleveland. Not because he has to, but because he understands what his father sacrificed to give him this chance. This is why the Sanders family is different. The confidence critics hate is actually rooted in generational knowledge. Shedeur walks into rooms with his head up, even as a fifth-round pick, because he's seen what the alternative looks like. He knows what having nothing means. He's determined to honor his father's legacy by maximizing every opportunity he gets. The graveyard runs, the milk jug football, the mango hunting in cemeteries. These aren't just stories Deion shared with his sons. These are lessons about resourcefulness, resilience, and the refusal to let poverty define your limitations. For Shedeur, this trip was a reminder that the privilege his critics use against him came with a cost. That cost was paid in graveyards and poverty, in fear and hunger, in a father who wouldn't let circumstances determine destiny. Shedeur is taking that legacy forward, not by repeating the poverty cycle, but by honoring the sacrifice through achievement, by never forgetting that everything he has came from his father's willingness to run through darkness to create light. That's the real meaning of this hood visit. It's not about nostalgia or emotion. It's about responsibility and future, built on understanding the past. If you want to know what drives Shedeur Sanders beyond his football talent, make sure you subscribe right now. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Does learning Deion's story change how you see Shedeur's confidence? Let me know what you think.